there. I tried out a few different intros and I couldn't settle on anything, so that's what just came out of my mouth. Hi there. I'm Audrey Marine. You can find me on Instagram at StitchStitchBead, and hopefully I'll be able to make that my handle here on YouTube as well. I thought I would try my hand at a Flosstube. I've been watching quite a bit lately, and it's not like that was ever what I set out to do. Like, oh, I want to make all these things so that I can have something to show on a Flosstube, and won't that be great? It's really because I have one particular FFO that I'm super duper proud of, and the significance of it, why I made it, why it's so important. That alone I thought was worth at least one episode of a Flosstube. So that's why I'm doing this. I also like to show some of the things that I've been working on and talk about some plans that I have, some things that I've finished, and a little bit about how, why, when I got into cross stitching. I don't have any friends that cross stitch that I know of. Like, friends out there, if you cross stitch, I cross stitch too. Let's talk about it. But recently my husband and I were on yet another trip. He travels a lot and sometimes I get to tag along with him. And we were in New Orleans recently, and I went with him to the racetrack. He works in motorsports. I went with him to the racetrack a few of the days, but you know, then in the evenings we get to do stuff together. Sometimes it's with colleagues, sometimes it's just the two of us. But we were having this conversation, just the two of us, and he was telling me about all the ins and outs of different sports car series and stuff, and like some of it I already know, but some, you just let him talk sometimes, right? And but then, you know, he wrapped up with what he was saying, and then I, you know, started diving in about this project that I was working on, and then talking about thread counts and coverage and things like that. And I was like, I know you don't care about any of this stuff and you don't really understand what I'm talking about. He's like, well, you just listen to me talk about, you know, whatever for however long you can have your time. But anyway, in that conversation, I realized I want to talk about it. I want to talk about like different thread counts and colors and different linen dyers and all that jazz. And if I get to do that just for a little bit, even if it's just to a camera, you know, I'm not having a conversation with anybody, but if I get to talk about it, I don't know, I think that's kind of cool. And maybe somebody will learn even just a little nugget from me. I'm not an expert. I've been cross stitching for a really long time, but for decades, it's been just Mill Hill kits on perforated paper, which are fun and so easy. And it's a great way for kids and adults alike to get into cross stitching because they give you everything you need, literally, even the needles. But it's been since last year that I started on linen and some other things, and oh my gosh, so many fun things to, you know, expand my cross stitching collection and finishes and all that stuff. So there's just so much out there. You're never going to be able to do it all. And I'm not, you know, I'm not an avid buyer. It's not like I started on linen last year and was like, oh, I got to buy all the linens and I got to buy all the patterns and everything. I didn't want to do that because I wanted to try to figure out what it was that I really liked. And I'm glad because the first thing that I started with on linen was just this past December. I started a baby sampler for some friends of ours, and it turned out beautifully. And it was on 32 count. And I was like, oh man, this is amazing. I don't know why I was so afraid of linen before. And then recently I started something on 40 count. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it, but I did. And then I went back to 32 count and I was like, oh my God, this is so huge. And I like the 40 way better. I like the 40 better. I like the tighter weave. And so now I'm thinking, should I try 46? 46 would be great. Anyway, but 40 is good. And I'm having fun with that. I've got some projects going on 40. And then I also started something on 36 to try to, you know, see if there's a happy medium to be found in there. Anyway, so I am, let's see, where should I start? I don't know. I guess I'll just start with where I started. I started cross stitching when I was about 9, if I remember correctly. I grew up in northern Michigan, and I don't mean Alpena, I mean almost Canada, Michigan, like, you know, way up here in the UP. And my mom was never really a stitcher, but she loves quilting, and she is an avid knitter. She knits like crazy, oh my gosh, which is great for me because I get handmade knit socks every Christmas. And sometimes just because. So there were a couple of shops in town, and we say town, it had like, you know, at the time, like 18,000 people. That was the big city of Marquette. So we, sometimes we would go to the knit shops that she liked. There was Knit and Purl, which I think Pat finally retired. Yeah, I mean, it was decades and decades. Like my grandma used to shop there. My grandma died a long time ago. So anyway, we would either go to Knit and Purl, or we would go to this other place, Uncommon Threads, which was on Washington Street in this funky old house that had this like weird ramp, and I remember a very squeaky door. And I don't remember the name of the woman who owned the place, but she was very nice. And she had these Mill Hill kits, and it was like, oh, every time I got to get a Mill Hill kit, it was very exciting. So actually you might see, oh, actually my little chicken pin. So my little chicken pin, I made this so long ago. Mill Hill doesn't make this kit anymore. And I know I made him when I was really young because some of the X's go this way and some of the X's go this way, and some of them are missing a crossover, so it's not quite right. But like these little magnets, you know, they came in little kits, and at the time, those Mill Hill kits, the really small ones, were only like $4 or something. And I know this, I know this not just because I remember, but because I found an unused kit that had been red tagged from Uncommon Threads, and it was marked down to like $225 or something. So it couldn't have been more than $450, you know, full price at the time. Anyway, so I started with Mill Hill kits, and it was great because, like I said, they come with everything you need. And if you are at all into cross stitching, I mean, you're aware of Mill Hill kits, even if you've never done one, right? They're pretty ubiquitous. But I made some pins and lots of magnets. My refrigerator is covered in old and new Mill Hill magnets. And even my kids, I have 2 boys, they are almost 9, and my oldest is 11. And, you know, they haven't finished any kits, but they've started them, and then they've made some things on their own. And this is all because I, you know, keep extra threads and beads and stuff. And I'm like, here's extra perforated paper, you know, make whatever you want. So they've got a couple kits that they've started, and then they've got other stuff that they just make out of their own head. And eventually, if I end up doing another one of these videos, I'll show some of their stuff because I'm pretty proud. There is one thing in particular that turned out awesome that my oldest made, and it is on the refrigerator. It's like this Pokemon thing, and I don't like Pokemon, but he did such a good job. He made the pattern himself, and he stitched it, he picked the colors, and he did like back stitching outline, and it's very nice. So I really enjoyed those as a kid, and when I grew up, I was like, why would I do anything else? These are so easy, and I love them. And Mill Hill makes, one of the things that they make are these Santa patterns that you can make into ornaments, and they'll put out 3 a year, and the 3 will be related. It'll be like a little series, a little trilogy, and they've been putting those out for, I should have looked this up, but it's like, you know, 20, I bet it's more than 20 years now. Anyway, so I went into my Christmas ornaments because by now I've made a ton of these. I went into my Christmas ornaments and I tried to find the oldest ones that I had. Now, I started stitching these over a decade ago, but only just like fully finished them off within the last couple years when my husband and I got our amazing Christmas tree from Balsam Hill. It's so pretty. Anyway, so I found these and so these are among the oldest Mill Hill Santa ornaments that I have stitched. And this is like what got me, you know, this is what not just got me started, but continuing me through cross stitching, right? So these, this particular set, these are the Arctic Circle Santas, and these patterns were put out in 2009. So this is Lapland Santa, And this one that I showed before here, this is Greenland Santa. And then Nunavut Santa. Nunavut Santa. So, and then all I did, I wanted them to stay really lightweight, but kind of stiff. So I found this funky paper at Michael's a couple years ago. It's embossed. And I just traced the Santas, and I cut this out slightly smaller than the finished product, the finished stitched product. And I used some archival clear glue and stick some cord, you know, this stuff also for Michael's. I got a ton of this after Christmas on their clearance rack. I was like, that's what I'm gonna use. So I must have started doing this in like a January or February or something, fully finishing them off in preparation for the following Christmas. I bet that's what I did. But then I wanted to show another set of some really old ones that I did that I just love. These ones are from 2007, this Holiday Harmony set, but they're so pretty. And I don't think they look dated at all. So this is the trumpet. And actually there are 6. There's a drum as well that I didn't do because I didn't really care for it. So I just did these 5. So that was the trumpet, and this is the mandolin, and this is the violin. And the violin actually comes with a bow. And I made the bow, but I wasn't satisfied with how I was trying to attach it. So I have bows stitched, but anyway. And then French horn, and then a harp. So these are so pretty. And there's Krynic actually. This was my first experience with Krynic. It was like, oh my God, what is that? What fresh hell is this? It's because it's so hard to thread, right? But it is really pretty, the Krynic on this one. And then these other string instruments, if you can see it, have Krynic as well. So those are really pretty. And I actually made a few extras and then sent them to some friends of ours. Because Alex she is a band teacher in Illinois. So I was like, she likes musical instruments. We asked her one time what instrument she could play, and she said all of them. And I was like, oh, how does your brain work that way? I don't understand it. Anyway, so lots of Christmas ornaments. And as I say, this might be my first and last Flosstube. I really just have like this one special thing that I want to talk about. But if I do continue this and maybe we get closer to the holidays, then I'll do a stitched ornament parade because I have a lot of them and they're so sparkly. Anyway, so that's kind of how I got started, Mill Hill kits. And then I live in the Indianapolis area. I grew up in northern Michigan, but a few years ago I moved down here to Indianapolis with my husband. He is from here, and we live on the east side, but on the northwest side up in Zionsville, Indiana, there is this place, this stitch shop called Persnickety Stitchers. And I had looked it up ages ago, but I only just ventured out there about a year ago for the first time. And I went in there, and I meant to dig out my patterns before I started this video. Oh well. I went in there and just like looked around, and like she had Mill Hill stuff, and she had a lot of like finishes and stuff that you could see that were on display. And I was like, oh, I made that one. And I'm like, oh my God, that one is so old, and I have that one at home on my fridge. And it was kind of funny to see those things because she's been there for a long time. So I imagine some of these display pieces have been sitting there for 20 years. But it was a really great shop, and I found some fun stuff. And it was my first introduction to just Nan, who is this pattern designer, Nan Caldera, and she has got some really cute stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I want it all. But I left there with only 2 patterns, and I have since finished both of those patterns. So yay me. But I went in and I bought the patterns, and she had the fabric that I needed. And so I got that, and then I figured the DMC would be easy enough to purchase, and I got all that on Michael's and stuff. And so I got those. But then, because I had found those Just Nan patterns, one was a needle keep, or you could just frame it. And then one was a pin cushion, and actually I've got it right here. So, because I had just within the last couple weeks finished stitching this. So I have to cut these out and sew it together and stuff it and do the sizing and the jazz. Yeah, my 11-year-old, he's like, did you finish the pin cushion yet? I'm like, no, stop talking about it. It'll get done. It will. At least it's all stitched. Like the stitching is finished. So anyway, since I loved these 2 patterns that I bought so much, the Just Stand patterns, I found 123stitch.com and oh my God, holy crap. Went on there and was looking at other Just Stand patterns, and I found her baby celebration and baby garden patterns. And those were so cute. And I was like, well, it was around that time that we found out that our friends Jordan and McKenna were expecting. And I was like, well, I'm going to buy both of these patterns because one looked generic / masculine and the other one looked pretty feminine. And I thought, well, I really liked the feminine one, but whatever. But I was like, well, whatever, you know, whether they have a boy or a girl, it really doesn't matter. It's a baby sampler. It can, you know, be covered in pink roses and fluffy bunnies, and it's a baby sampler. So anyway, they did end up having a boy. And so that was the sampler that I started in early December and then finished after their baby boy Everett was born. And it's one of those things where, you know, anytime you're making something for someone or when you're buying art or something for someone, something that's going to go on a wall, whether you've made it or you purchased it from someone else, you don't always know that it's going to be their cup of tea. And so when I gave it to them, you know, we were all like laughing and joking and stuff. And I was like, well, if you want to hide it in a closet, you know, obviously don't have to put it up. I don't know really how much they took that to heart, but you know, you hope that what you make and what you've put however many hours and days into is really loved and appreciated and liked. So I hope that they did like it. I believe that they appreciated the effort and the sentiment and everything, but it's not necessarily everyone's aesthetic, right? And if you're familiar with Just Stand's designs, they all kind of have the same look. So like even when I'm perusing Instagram, I'll see something, a pattern that I've never seen before, but if it's a Just Stand, like you can kind of tell that it's a Just Stand, and it's like, yeah, that's cute. And even the ones from like decades ago, you're like, yeah, that looks like her stuff. Anyway, so I made baby garden for Jordan and McKenna and their baby Everett, and that turned out beautifully. It was on 32 count, natural Belfast, and I just used DMC, and it was so cute. And I had it framed at Michael's, and I picked like a sage green mat with a silk finish, you know, kind of like that rough finish, and a white frame, and it looked super cute. And I picked this. I picked that framing because I knew that their house had been like redone shortly before they bought it, and all the trim was white. So that's why I picked white. So I did think about like where I have never been to their house, and I don't know what the nursery looks like, but I was thinking about, well, if, you know, the pictures that I've seen online, because they showed us the listing when they were looking at buying it. If all the trim is white, then we'll go with a white frame, and that'll be easy. And if they want to reframe it, that's up to them. If they stick it in a closet, if they hang it on the wall, whatever, it's up to them. Anyway, and if you want to see a picture of that, go ahead and check out my Instagram. It is at StitchStitchBead on Instagram. I've been on there for over a year now or something, just kind of posting this and that. I have never posted a picture of myself, so here I am, in case you were wondering. But I like cross stitching. I like finishing things, and I like to photograph them and put them up and just like give a little, you know, info about why I made it or how I made it or when I made it or whatever. And if you're interested in checking out my stuff, please do. Like I said, at StitchStitchBead. If not, that's okay too. So I say this because I'm not gonna try to mess around too much with trying to insert pictures on this video here. I'm gonna kind of talk at you, and if you want to check out my photos from Instagram, that's great. But so I finished that baby sampler for Jordan and McKenna after their baby was born in early January. But in the time from when we found out they were pregnant to the time that they actually had the baby, our other friends, Alex and John, told us that they were expecting. And we love Jordan and McKenna, and we're super happy for them. And I was so happy to meet Everett earlier this year. He's such a good baby. But they had a very like traditional story, I think. They got married, and they were married for a few years, and then McKenna got pregnant, and they've got a baby. But Alex and John, and I'm gonna try not to cry, Alex and John are like the two best humans on the planet, and they suffered so long with infertility and went through 9 rounds of IVF, and then decided to do a 10th. And they decided no matter what, baby or no baby, that round 10 was going to be it. And it was just so heartbreaking, just, you know, year after year, round after round, to see that still no baby. So then in August, they told us that they were expecting, and that round 10 had worked, and she was pregnant. She was with child, and it was very, very exciting, but also nerve-wracking. Just, I mean, I would have these horrible dreams that oh my God, and I would cry all the time. I mean, I cry anyway, but cry all the time. Anyway, so when it was getting closer to the time that their baby boy, we found out, was going to arrive, who was due in mid-April, early to mid-April, I started stitching their sampler because I had that extra pattern, right? Because I bought 2 patterns, and one I used for Jordan and McKenna's, and I knew that I didn't want to do the same one, so I decided I'll use the other one. I'll use the feminine looking one, and even though it's a boy, I can change some colors, I can modify some things, and I can make it look a little more for this other kid. I can personalize it a little bit more. And so when we got closer to the due date, you know, I'm not a religious person, and I'm not a superstitious person, but it's like they've suffered so much heartbreak. And Ryan and I have just had to watch them go through all this. And I'm not telling anybody secrets. You can find Alex's story at Bringing Home Baby Bax, B-A-X, on Instagram. It's a public account. She's got 20-some thousand followers, and she talks about IVF and all the different things, and most of it I don't understand. But anyway, you can go check her out if you or anyone you know suffers from infertility and is struggling with that. Specifically SERC, S-E-R-C. It has to do with egg quality. Anyway, that's what they've been dealing with. So when we were getting closer to the due date, I started finally stitching this thing. And then he was born. He was here. It was a magical night, and we found out at like 3:30 in the morning, even though the kid was born at like 9:15, John. Anyway, so I was going to show some other stuff, but since I went on this big whole spiel about this, we'll get into this now, and then maybe I'll show some other stuff. And thank you to those who have like sat through and listened to all this. Okay. Anyway, so I don't get to show Jordan and McKenna's baby sampler, but I can show you the one I made for John and Alex. And I have not given it to them yet. They don't, obviously it's in my hands. And they don't know that I made it. It's going to be a surprise. We're not going to see them until July, unfortunately. They live in Chicago. We live in Indianapolis. It's not that far, but we're also trying to give them some space, and we're planning something for this summer. Anyway, so baby boy, Luca Benjamin Baxmeyer, and we only found out his name when he was born. I made Baby Celebration for Luca, and I am so pleased with how it turned out. So this sage matte and white frame is the same that I chose for baby Everett's, because, you know, I took it to Michael's and I was going to pick a different mat, and then I was like, you know what, I really like that one, so we're just going to go with that one too, because there's a lot of the same colors. Nan uses a lot of the same colors from, you know, pattern to pattern. So like the sagey green was picking up some stuff in here. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this. It's like the significance that this baby is unbelievably somehow here, 10 rounds of IVF, and we've got a baby backsmire. But what I did, when I made the sampler for baby Everett, I really stuck to the pattern. I was like, oh, I gotta follow the pattern exactly, and I gotta, use the right colors, and oh my goodness. No, it doesn't matter. Just use whatever the hell you have. But when I got to do this one, I was anxious for the baby and anxious for Alex, but I was more comfortable making adjustments and changes and personalization and all that stuff. So, for example, up here was supposed to be this backstitched hummingbird. I like hummingbirds, but the other birds in the pattern are all cross-stitched. So why was the hummingbird backstitched? It wasn't filled in or anything. It was just backstitched. It was like an outline. And even I showed this to my kids, and my oldest, he was like, that's weird. That's not consistent. I was like, no, it's very incongruous. So I subbed in a little dragonfly, which there are dragonflies throughout the pattern. So I was like, we're just going to put another one up there. And then the baby blanket, you can pick blue or pink or do whatever color you want. But I did blue. I wanted to blue it up. So, and the irises were already blue, so that worked out. But then, like I say, change the hummingbird for a dragonfly, put the blue blanket in the bassinet there. And then it's funny, when I was making this, backsmire is such a long name. So there's actually supposed to be just one row for the name. And then there's supposed to be this like satin stitch grass right here, which I wasn't crazy about anyway. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep the count the same, but I'm not going to do the satin stitch grass until I know this kid's name. And I'm so glad, because I didn't want to stitch it anyway, and I had to leave it out altogether anyway because of how long the kid's name. So if it had been like John Paul Backsmire, it probably would have fit all on one, but because of Benjamin, it's taking up, all that extra room. So so then down here, one other reason I really liked this pattern is because it had the puppy dogs in it. And John and Alex have this little dog. He's like a cockapoo, or he's some sort of poo. I don't know. He's like this funny little thing. And he's like this little black fuzzy thing, and he's funny, and Alex does this goofy voice when she's pretending to be him. And this dog here in the pattern had a brown muzzle, and I stitched it brown. And then my 11-year-old was like, oh, well, are you going to make it gray because Tucker has gray on his nose? Okay, so I stitched over the brown and made it gray. Thanks, Rue. Thank you for being a nitpicker. So did that. And then like the little ribbons on the ducks here, those were supposed to be pink, but I made one teal and one purple. We've got the date and the time. And then this was not included in the pattern, but I pushed this all down so that I could put in the length and the weight. And this little froggy, I thought we needed some more critters. So I put in this froggy, and I just stitched him just from my imagination. And he's so stinking cute. I love him. And then this spider is actually on the baby garden pattern from Just Ann. So I copied it because I thought it was so cute on baby Everett's sampler. So I was like, we need a spider, because kids like bugs, right? I don't really like spiders that much, but the stitched ones are so cute. And then let's see what other, oh my God. Okay, so there's a funny story here. Okay, so Alexandra, I had to text John and say, what's Alex's middle name? I got it, so I could put their initials here. And I already knew he was John Henry Backsmire. But I'm stitching this at the kitchen table. And our kitchen, living, dining room area is all like one big room. And so I was stitching at the dining room table, I guess it would be. And I'm putting in Alex's initials. Great, no problem. And I didn't even use an alphabet. I just stitched it. I was like, I kind of want to make it look cursive-y-ish, and I'll just figure it out, right? Well, then I get to John Henry's, and this J has given me problems. And so I guess I'm sitting up there, and Ryan is on the couch, and I've had to restitch this J like 3 or 4 times. And I guess I just said, John Henry, pain in my ass, and Ryan snorted and was like, what is going on over there? And then I laughed and I told him what I was doing and trying to stitch these initials and stuff. And he's like, can I text John and say that you said that? And I was like, sure, but how are you going to explain? Anyway, so he sent that off and John's like, what did I do? It's not you, John, it's your initials. So eventually I did get a J that I was satisfied with, and I think it's beautiful. Let's see, what else? Did I change anything else? I don't think so. Oh, and then these ribbons were supposed to be pink on the balloons. I made them brown. I changed just enough so that it's not like, you're not like being attacked by pink. Because I love pink, but I don't want a ton of it. So, yeah, I think it turned out really beautiful. Anyway, we're so excited for them. They have a baby, and he's here, and he's so cute, and he's fuzzy, and he has blonde hair, and I just want to smell him. Anyway, so I'm excited to give them their gifty. I'm excited. I've been sitting on this thing, and I was like, do I want to ship it? I want them to have it, like now, like yesterday, like when Luca was born, like when I got it back from the framer. But I want to see them open it. And that was the other thing. We're wiggling. Stop. Okay. So that was the other thing I was going to talk about, personalization. So because Luca Benjamin Baxmeyer had to be on two lines, I ended up with these gaps over here. And I was like, well, I could just like put flowers or something in them. But then, light bulb moment, I went on to the Wikipedia and looked up Lucca, Italy, because Luca Benjamin Baxmeyer is named after Lucca, Italy, because John and Alex went on this magical trip to Italy, and Lucca was their favorite place that they went to on that trip. And they decided then, apparently, and didn't tell anybody, that they would name their firstborn, boy or girl, Luca. So, and that's why it's Lucca, like the city, and not Luca, like the awesome Pixar movie. Love that movie. Anyway, so I went onto Wikipedia and I read a little bit about Lucca, Italy. And interestingly enough, there is a city crest. And there's like a little shield, a red and white shield, but it's flanked by oak leaves and acorns and laurel leaves and berries. So just in my imagination, I stitched 2 little oak leaves, and these are quarter size stitches. So these are 2/1. Yes, they're 2/1. That's why they look like chunky. So they're 2/1. And then these laurel I did with just like a satin stitch, basically, long stitching. And then I did, I was counting like how many leaves, how many acorns, whatever. I don't want it to be too much, just like a little bit would be good. So 2 oak leaves, 3 laurel leaves, 2, 3 for 2023, and then 3 acorns, 4 berries. That makes 7, and he was born on the 7th of April. And it doesn't really matter, number things like that, but if you had the opportunity to put some meaning into it, I think that's good too. Anyway, I'm really proud of this piece, and it has to hang on somebody else's wall, hopefully. Oh, and I had seen the nursery that they made up for Lucca, so I know that this will fit within the color scheme, should they choose to hang it up. So, anyway, very excited about that. I want to see that baby. They send us pictures every once in a while. I'm like, okay. Anyway, so I think now I will get into my Stitch Mania plans, things that I have started, because we're already 13 days into May. Today is Saturday, May 13th. Of course, it might take me a while to figure out how to put this on YouTube, so, anyway, so I'll get into Stitch Mania plans, things that I've started, things that I'm going to start, but real quick, just because it's on the top of the pile, I made a couple purchases. I've been looking for project bags, and I watch these YouTubers, and they've got like 1 million project bags. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want so many that, you only need so many, right? Because I could just buy, but don't need to do that. But I had been searching for project bags. I was like, do I want the vinyl front? Do I want something that's fully enclosed? Do I want something that'll hold a big book? What do I want? And I had been looking and I favorited some things on Etsy, but never made any purchases. And then the other night I was like, you know what, let me just try one more time. And then I happened upon this woman, and she had this really cute quilted bag. And I was like, oh, that's cute. Let me see what else she has. Yes, thank you. So Joanna, 1966, Joanna 1966 on Etsy. She's got a shop and she sells these quilted project bags. And so after I got into her shop, I saw this one, and immediately I was like, William Morris, thank you very much. Because I love William Morris prints, and I want one day to have some William Morris wallpaper somewhere in my house. It's so pretty. Like when we go to, my husband and I love to go to museums and stuff, and I like to go and walk through like where they have articles from homes and stuff, and you see like these weird furniture pieces and silver sets and snuff boxes and candlesticks and all the Wedgwood. Oh my God, so much Wedgwood. But the William Morris stuff, I just love. I love the patterns. And look at this bird. Look at him. He's so cute. So, and they're very nicely done. So fully enclosed zipper, and it's lined, and there's, oh, it's got bumblebees in it. Oh my God, I didn't even see that. Okay, so quilted, fully quilted, not just like fabric that looks like it's quilted and they stitch over it. It is actually quilted. And then this cute back. And then I found another one that I liked that was made with this French General fabric. And these are both Moda fabrics, so you've probably seen them. Anyway, but French General, this is Bleu de France, and oh look, it's got a bird, another bird. And I thought, well, I can take this with me to France, because Ryan and I are going with his folks to Le Mans for the 24-hour race that's coming up in June. And he's like, well, you know, we don't have to go to the track every day. We can go to, I was like, yes, we're doing other stuff. We're going and walking around Le Mans and eating cheese. So anyway, but I thought this Bleu de France would be pretty perfect for taking to France. So I'm excited about those project bags. I think they're super cute, and they feel really sturdy, nicely well made. So Joanna, 1966. And they weren't terribly expensive, and she offered free shipping. So good deal. Good deal. Okay. So Stitch Mania, holy crap. Some people are really going to town with Stitch Mania and going a little crazy. So I don't like to have a ton of projects going on at once. Like 2 things at a time, 2 whips at a time is really all I want to have. I want to have something that fits in like that size project bag, and maybe something that I need a table, a surface for, and don't necessarily want to pack up. Or maybe it's just like a couple ornaments that I'm working on, and I get tired of all this white and I want to switch to something else. But for Stitch Mania, I found out about it last year and I was like, I can't do that. But then this year, again, I was thinking, well, maybe I should venture out and it'll help me, you know, find different patterns and things. So I went onto YouTube and searched Stitch Mania, and the Cornhusker State Stitches came up, and that was my first experience watching any of their videos, and they're fun, and they remind me of me and my mother a little bit. So they're fun in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they were talking about their Stitch Mania plans, and they're like, we have over 31 whips, so we're just going to work on a different whip every day of the month. And I was like, oh my God, you have over 31 whips? And then they're like, no, wait, we're going to start 31 new whips. What? Why? How do you keep track of this stuff? Anyway, they have fun with it, but I don't think I can handle that. So I thought, because May is a super busy month for us, especially this year, but May is a super busy month for us, Indianapolis 500. You know, I thought, let's just, and this is my first Stitch Mania, let's go a little crazy, but not super crazy. So what I decided to do was I'd work on what I was already working on, and then I would add a new start every Monday, because there are 5 Mondays in May, and I thought that's perfect. And then I know I'm home every Monday in May as well, because sometimes we're just like not home and we're traveling so much. So I decided to start 5 new projects in May. Plus I've got Whip Go going on. So I've got 2 things from that, but I've already taken care of one of them, and we'll just not get into that right now. But anyway, so the first thing that I started for Stitch Mania was this Plum Street sampler that I found at Persnickety. Super cute. And I'm doing this on 40 count. And forgive me, I don't remember the fabric. But again, at StitchStitchBead on Instagram, I put all the information. I put the thread count and the manufacturer and the color. And then for this one, like I even talked about how I subbed some colors. Like this was supposed to be a pink for the thistles, brown stalks, and pink petals, I guess you call them. But I was like, oh, but I want my thistles to be purple. And I don't even really like purple, but I want my thistles to be purple. So I started this and I made really good progress. There's still like a band on the bottom that I have to do, and then I have to finish this side. But I'm gonna put my own twist on this one, as you'll see. Anyway, so I made good progress on that. So that was the first Monday's start. And then my second Monday's start was a pattern that I had found several months ago on Etsy. Stitches Through the Years is what you can search, but it's actually too long. So I think her shop name is Stitches Through YR, I think is what it is. And this is Lana, I don't remember her last name, makes all these patterns, and they look old, they look kind of antique-y, but they're all her original design. So this is A House Is what it's called. And her model is stitched with variegated cottons, and I bought all of those. But my idea was to make this to commemorate my 4th year anniversary with my husband. And traditionally that is the linen/silk anniversary. So I was like, oh, well, I'll use silk threads on linen. It'll be amazing. And then the variegation, even on these variegated silks, it's like, it's not what I want it to be. So I had a little bit of a meltdown the other night. It's okay. My husband talked me off the, frogging edge. So we're good. It's fine. Everything is a learning experience, right? Right. Anyway, I do think this is really pretty, and I'm excited to see it finished. I made good progress in just a few days. There's a border that goes all the way around, and then there's a saying up here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend the border, and then in the same typeface I'm going to put my husband's and my names, and then our wedding date, Indianapolis. And so extend the border, put that there, and then that will be finished off and framed and stuck up somewhere in our house. So that was my project for the second Monday. So the third Monday, which is just coming up in just 2 days, I'm gonna do something even smaller, because then maybe I can really get it. Because the thistle house, I made really good progress on the thistle house. This, I think I can safely say, is halfway done, which is great, because the sooner I can, get done with that, cross it off my whip list, the better. So then my project for the third Monday, since I wanted to do a house is, and I had actually purchased that PDF pattern months ago, and it's like been sitting on my computer. And then I found this thistle house when I went to Persnickety last month. When was that? Anyway, I was like, oh, well, let's just keep on that theme. I've got houses, so let me just keep on that theme. And that way, it helped me narrow things down and choose patterns very quickly. And I like everything that I picked out. So the thing that I'm gonna start this coming Monday is Simply Summer by the Drawn Thread. And I have lots of fabric from which to choose here. So I didn't buy anything special for this, because one of my off in the distance plans is to do a Dutch Beauty by Permanent Copenhagen, and you know what I'm talking about. So I purchased some small-ish pieces of 40 count, and I think even a couple 36 counts, but 40 counts from 123 Stitch, just so I could see the colors in person, so I could make my decision for a Dutch Beauty. Because once I start that and make any kind of progress, I am not going to want to restart that, because I told my husband about that. I was like, it's going to be huge. He's like, where are we going to put it? Above our bed or above our non-existent mantelpiece, whatever. Anyway, so this is a nice little piece, and there is a whole series. This is Simply Summer, and obviously there's one for every seasons. I thought this was cute. I like the little red house. Yeah, that's cute. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start that on Monday, and I think that'll go pretty quickly. And then the next one I chose, I wanted to kind of mix up my designers, because originally I picked that Thistle House by Plum Street Samplers, and then I looked at other Plum Street Samplers, and I was like, oh my god, I could just pick nothing but Plum Street Samplers. But I was like, no, let's mix it up a little bit so it doesn't all look exactly the same. So then I remembered Blackbird Designs, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing stuff that I liked, and let's look and see what they have. And so Feast of Friendship, Blackbird Designs, and cute old looking antique blue house. I live in a blue house. Doesn't look anything like this. This one's nicer, but it's cute. I like it. I hear car doors. Don't know what's going on outside. Anyway, so just fun, pretty. And then this Feast of Friendship, I don't know if I'm going to keep that, or maybe just like put the Marine family or something, my name. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I just thought it was cute. It's got a pineapple on it. And I love Psych. So that works. And then for that, I actually did choose a specific fabric. It's hard to see. It's like a goldish. It's really more of a gold. It's like a corn gold. It is Weeks Dye Works Corn Silk Linen. Really, really pretty in person. I wish the camera could pick it up. Yeah. Anyway, and here are all the threads to go with that. Oh. So there's Classic Colorworks and then Gentle Art for all these. But there's Corn Husk, Wood Rose, Sarsaparilla, Rose Garden, Ye Old Gold, Toffee. Lots of fun, really fun antique looking colors. So I'm excited to do that. And then my last one, I'm gonna try to scoot up here. See, why didn't I take this down? So after I bought this stuff, I kitted it all up and put it on this hook, and then I realized I should have put the pattern in front, but I put all the threads in front anyway, so don't make me take this off. But I did pick another Plum Street sampler because I saw this on someone's Instagram, and I was like, oh, I love that so much. So this is Live on Little. It's gonna be big, not little, but super cute. And I got that at Persnickety as well. And she had some fabric that would have worked with it, but I wasn't in love with it. So I picked, where did it go? I don't know what I did with it. Oh, here it is. This is what I want. So I picked a 36 count cotton, or color and cotton, 36 count linen in Chantilly. So the pattern, the model is stitched on something else, but I wanted something pretty delicate, pretty light, but there are white birds on the pattern. So the white birds still needed to be able to show up. Anyway, so that is what I've got going on for Stitch Mania. I've got other finishes. I've got other patterns that I'm excited to do. Not a ton of stuff because, as I say, you know, I watch these floss tubes and people just go and they buy and oh, isn't this pretty? And it is pretty. It's like fun to watch what they've brought home, what their haul is. But I don't think I can do that. I would hate to think of all these patterns sitting in bins and boxes and stuff and not getting stitched. So I'm trying to only buy what I can make within the next year or so, right? I still have some unfinished Santa kits. I think I've got 7 left because I started a set of 3. I did 2 of a set of 3. So then I've got the 3rd one, and then I've got 2 more sets of 3. So that would make 7. So I've got some Santas left to do, and I've got, I'm working on the Mill Hill Christmas Village, and I've gotten a couple of those done, but I've still got more of those to do. But those only take me like a week. And then obviously I've got what I'm gonna get going on here for Stitch Mania. So as much fun as it would be to just buy, I haven't done that. I just can't bring myself to do that. I can't do that. But what I have been doing is keeping a wish list. So patterns that I see either on Flosstube or on Instagram or something, I'll write it down, and that way I can revisit it. And do I still want that? Am I still interested in that? Is that going to work with my aesthetic that I want? You know, I don't have anything up in my house except for that. That's up. That's nice. And then there are some things that it's a good thing I wrote them down, because then I go back to this list and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's beautiful. So, I mean, Dutch Beauty is one of those things that's on my list. But then there are some other pieces that I found that I'm excited to track down and kit up eventually. But I want to get through a lot of what I already have. And then another thing is, you know, when you get this stuff done, you gotta finish it. Like, have it finished, or frame it, or whatever, and that's costly, as I've discovered. It's not cheap. But it is fun. It's fun to stitch. It's fun to see these things come out in person in your hand. It's pretty amazing. I like the process. And I like that my kids have gotten into it too. You know, not a ton, but they're like, oh, Mom, what are you working on? And you know, there's like a couple ornaments. There's one in particular I remember I was working on Santa's hand, and my oldest son, he stitched the rest of the hand. So now when I pull that Santa ornament out, I see it. I'm like, oh, that little hand was stitched by my baby. So that's fun. And anyway, so I like talking cross stitch. I like looking at patterns and projects and stuff online, and I've been having a lot of fun watching Flosstubes. Brenda and Laura, you guys make me laugh so much. And especially having grown up in Michigan, you know, it's fun to listen to you too. But then I also, you know, I watched a lot of videos from the Hygge Stitcher, Hygge Stitcher. She's up in Winnipeg. And then, as I mentioned, the Cornhusker State Stitchers, they're fun as well. So I've been having a good time just learning through them. It's amazing the things that I didn't know. So I'm definitely not an expert. I'm not necessarily somebody to look to for tips and tricks and whatever. But I feel like there are some things, like in teaching my kids, I'm like, yeah, I came up with this little trick myself, and isn't that neat? And they're like, oh yeah. And then they lose interest and go on to something else. But I hope you had fun watching what I've shown here today. I had fun making it, and I would like to share more. This was fun. I did enjoy this, but next time I gotta turn on the air conditioning because I can see my face is getting a little red. Anyway, but thank you to all those who watched, and if you want to like, comment, ask a question, find me on Instagram, all that stuff is good. I'm Audrey Marine. It's M-Y-R-E-H-N. I know it does not make any sense. I blame my husband. And then my handle is @StitchStitchBead. So anyway, happy stitching!